Hey, what's going on? Long time since I've made a video, but there was a Diablo 4 announcement, so I feel compelled to speak about it. I do have some opinions. Some of them good, some of them bad. I honestly don't know. I don't know where to end up. I should, caveat at the very beginning of this video, everything I'm going to say is based on my preference as an individual for the type of game that I would like to play and the types of games that I have played in the past, which have retained my attention for a very long period of time, and I enjoy my play sessions with. So there's a caveat there because there are a lot of games that I've played a ton, like Diablo 3, that I didn't even really enjoy my play sessions. I just really wanted to, or I thought maybe if I just get this far, it'll get better. Um, and so yeah, I'm going to talk about a few of the things that I saw in Diablo 3. I'm going to compare them to, Diablo 4. Excuse me. I'm going to talk about what I saw for Diablo 4. I played the demo a few different times, and then I'll talk about, Diablo 3 and Diablo 2 a little bit as kind of comparisons, throw in a little bit of Path of Exile. I'm a big fan of all of these games, so if you're not familiar with any of them, just ask me about it in the comments. I can explain what the hell I'm talking about. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is itemization. I think this is the big one. I think itemization missed in a huge way in Diablo 3. Just completely missed the mark. It was just it was honestly it was garbage. I don't want to necessarily say the whole way through from start to finish, but it definitely is now. Now it's awful. Anytime that there is an item with a percentage higher than 1,000, and I don't care what it's for. I don't care if it's armor, defense, resistance, attack. What it doesn't matter. If you make an action RPG and you create an item and it has a percentage, and that percentage is higher than 1,000%, your itemization is fucked. That's it. At least for that item. But no, like nobody needs numbers that high. 1,000% works just equivalently to 100%, right? And so there's no reason you can't just scale that all the way down unless, your game is polluted by power creep, which is what happened to Diablo 3's itemization, right? Every time there's a new season, everybody gets a little bit more numbers. So that I guess to trick you into thinking you weren't just running in place. I don't know. Paragon levels are kind of a symptom of that issue as well. But let me talk about what I believe good itemization looks like, right? Good items, really good items, are items that change the way you think about playing your character, make you want to try something different, or just make you feel really powerful, really cool, when you put them on. And, there's been a lot of talk. I've seen a lot of videos about this where people touched on it, and I kind of agree with everyone that I've seen make a video or a post. I think Riker talked about it, Noxious talked about it, Quinn talked about it, and I've watched a lot of these videos, seen a lot of people. They're saying all of the same things that I'm thinking. So I'm getting this feeling like there's a lot of people that think the way that I do about it. But I mean, basically, if you get an item while you're leveling it up, and let's say you're level, 39, and if you put that item on and it's just got attack and defense, then there's no thought about any of the stats. It's literally, is this number higher, is this number lower? And that kind of sucks. It's a shitty feeling because the numbers are always lower for anything below max level. As soon as you hit max level, all your gear is invalid. If you play a game like Diablo 2 or Path of Exile, and you observe kind of how the item systems work in these games, you will have items that you wear with you for 10 levels, 20 levels. Like, well, this stat's higher, but this one gives me a really cool effect, or this one has the sockets that I need, or this one has the resistances that I need. And so, you know, itemization became a huge problem in Diablo 3, especially with resistances, which is something people haven't talked about a lot. Resistances work really well when they cap. If you don't cap your resistances, they're just a defense stat all over again, which is why they are dumbing down all the stats to attack and defense, because they realize, oh, getting a resist on an item is just getting all resists as a secondary in Diablo 3. It's the same as getting defense or as getting armor. They're all the same. There's no distinction between them, or getting dexterity, which is, if it's not your main stat, useless. And so, but when you have these kinds of systems, the items all feel kind of crap. They're like bland. You're not. There's no story. It's just, well, the number's higher, boom. You're not developing your character and gearing up. What you're essentially doing is just passing time until you hit max level, at which point you just throw out all of your gear as soon as you find a piece for that slot. And this is atrocious in modern Diablo 3, where you do the challenge rift, and then as soon as you hit 70, boom, you just gamble one item for every slot. Boom, every piece of gear you had before, then it doesn't matter. And so that's an awful system. And then we can also talk about rare items, whether or not in-game rares should be viable versus, legendaries. And the answer is obviously yes. I don't know why anyone would say no to this. It doesn't matter if it would take you 100 times longer to get a viable rare item over a legendary. It should be doable. The rare items are the way that you as the player decide, well, this is what I need right now. All right? Legendary items are the developer saying, this is what you need in that slot. Rare items is you as the player saying, no, I want a dual leech ring. I want mana and life leech on my rings. No, I want +3 skills on my Ami and health and all resists. And there's not a unique item that like fills that role. I realize that I'll get 100 unique items, for my neck piece in the time that it will take me to find that amulet, but that's okay. I'm fine with that. Like, that's the way that you progress your character. The gear doesn't have to be linear, just higher attack, higher attack, higher attack. There can be side grades and partial downgrades, things that you've chosen. This is the item that I want there, which leads us to ancient items. I think ancient items were the biggest mistake that the Diablo 3 team ever made, and primal agents were just an extension of that. They're just garbage, because when they made those items, the justification became, well, we can send you higher and higher rift levels, and we can dump more and more and more loot at you because you can be, chasing after the primal ancient version. What that essentially did was, any character that you make, you'll have a full set of gear. In about, 10 hours played, you'll have every single item that you need for the build. You will skyrocket from 0 to greater rift 90, and then you're just going for a 5% upgrade. And that's it forever. You're like, well, if I get the perfectly rolled one night, now I get 5% more. But I already got the item. The item itself, the base version of the item, should have been the thing that I was chasing after, right? Not a 5% better version of the item, which feels bad to loot. It doesn't feel good. It feels really good? It feels really good going from a 4-socket chest piece in Path of Exile to a 5-link chest piece to a 6-link. All of those jumps, and they are jumps. It's not like I found this and then, oh, here's a little bit better and here's a little bit. No, it's like I found this 4-link and here's a 5-link. It is literally 50% better. And here's a 6-link. It is literally 50% better than that. It's double the 4-link version. Whereas in Diablo 3, you could literally get a downgrade from an ancient item. You could find an ancient item which has higher stats, and the rolls just be the wrong thing or whatever, and now it's actually worse. You don't even equip it. And that's terrible design. If you look at a game like Diablo 2, what happened was your progression was from like, well, I got the, to start off, I got Biggin's Bonnet, which is a cap, a low-level unique cap. Now you're chasing after a Peasant Crown, which is the unique war hat. It's like, well, I got Peasant Crown, boom, it has a ton of extra stuff on it. And then you're chasing from there, I want a Shaco, a Harlequin Crest Shaco. You can Google these if you're not familiar. Boom, 2 doll skills, health, mana, damage reduction. Oh my god, this item felt amazing to find, period. And if you just found a Shaco, like midway through Nightmare on every character that you play with, then what? Then, like, oh, I'm going to find a Shaco that's going to have a little bit more health. It's going to have a little bit more. Like, no, finding that item should be exciting every time. Every item that you find that is cool that you'd want to equip should be exciting. And when you're just dumping candy all over the floor and your justification is, well, we're going to give you a 12% better version of the item at some point, it doesn't feel fun to chase that. It's garbage. It means nothing, right? This kind of sense of, items going to the moon and, getting infinitely better or whatever, incrementally better, excuse me. It's not fun. It's not satisfying gameplay, right? What I like about items, and when items are done really well, is when my character can be almost naked, except for maybe a weapon, in the case of a melee character. When I can be naked as a character, and I can still do the build and kill monsters. Think about the fantasy you're creating of your character here, right? If you've got a barbarian, this guy is a big, meaty, bulky, like he's got axes and swords and stuff. He doesn't have to have his chest piece on. He doesn't have to have his helm on. He doesn't have to have his boots on. He can literally go out there, wang out with his weapons, and smash demons. He's agile, he's adept, he's fast, he's reactive. He doesn't have to take hits, right? That's the fantasy of the character. You get a Diablo 3 character naked with just a weapon, you just go outside of town and you get one-shotted by everything. And it's like, would a Fallen really one-shot this guy if he's got this big-ass axe? Wouldn't he kill a few things? And it's really just his defense that suffers? And this is, this is a problem with the Diablo 3 system, right? The gear is the build. The character is not built in a certain way. The gear is built in a certain way. And so, items should supplement the decisions you have already made as a player to your character, or they will influence them and say, wow, this exists. I now want to try this thing, and I want to try playing this way. I want to play more defensively. I want to move faster. I want to kill faster, whatever the case may be. But, the litmus test for good item system is if your character is naked except for their weapon, can they still kill things at a fundamental level? And if they can't, your items are giving too much of the power to the player, and you need the player's choices that they make for their character's skills and talents to give more of that power, right? Make me emotionally, mentally, whatever, invested in my character's development, and not just, well, if you have these items, you can make this build and that's it. The build should work without gear. That is fundamental. And, the ancient item system kills that. And then the mythic items, I actually think those could be great. Depending on balance, mythics are like a GG rare. They're like an in-game rare item. Those are phenomenal. I think those could work very well. But last but not least on itemization, I want to talk about unique affixes, legendary item affixes, excuse me. I think, you guys are kind of going the wrong way on these. This specific skill gets this percent. You're just mandating that gear, right? And nobody's going to want to play that build if they can't do it at the highest levels and push content and have fun. They will, even if it's a niche build, if it's actually still usable, right? But when you bloat these percentages with one-off items or set bonuses, it just the build becomes not fun or not usable at all unless you're using these preset items, And I like generic affixes, generic legendaries that, they feel like they could work on any kind of character, not like every Whirlwind Barb has to have this ring and these bracers and this shoulder pad. There should not be a build that mandates specific uniques, and when you're supplementing skill affixes based on specific uniques, that's going to cause a problem. So here's where it's done really well. Diablo 2, any rune word that had an O skill. So an O skill is it adds a skill to your character that character normally would not have access to. And O skills were great because you put that item on any character and you could use it and it would feel amazing. So think about uniques in that way, or just generically amazing items that add plus to skills. So what you can do is, using the plus to skills systems, introduce breakpoints to your skill tree, where hard cap for putting stats into a skill is level 20, like Diablo 2, for example. But then at level 21, this skill gets an extra projectile. And so now it's not, oh, well, you have to have these bracers, because these bracers give that skill an extra projectile, which is garbage. Make it so that synergy is baked into the tree, right? So then when you get any item that's like, well, I want 3 extra projectiles with that skill. Okay, well, you just need 9 extra skill points. Well, I can get 9 extra skill points from this rare amulet, from this, 2-piece set bonus, and from this, legendary helm, right? And then now I'm choosing, do I want the legendary helm that gives +2 and will, screw with my resists? Or do I want the huge life pool that the boots give, but they don't add skills? And now I am making a lot of choices about what items I wear, rather than the skills that I picked making the choices for me. And so I have way too much time on that. This video is going to be like an hour long. I'm sorry, I'm going to rant, but if there are any lessons to be learned from Diablo 3's itemization system, it is that it fundamentally failed through percentage bloat and locking you into specific gear requirements for specific builds. There should be builds that work without a single legendary item, and not just work, but are fun to play, and dare I say even competitive in the end game grind. And maybe it takes the gear 10 times longer to get there. This is what you tried to do with the Legacy of Nightmare set, but you're still forcing legendary items onto the player by doing that. So just imagine the Legacy of Nightmare set, but without requiring any legendary items whatsoever, just rares that you just get, really, 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 really lucky. And crafting is a part of that. They haven't talked about the crafting system yet, but basically what I'd like to see for crafting is a blend of the Diablo 3 system and the Path of Exile system. The Diablo 3 crafting system is mostly deterministic, and the Path of Exile system is mostly random. So combine those two and make kind of a hybrid that feels good for everybody to use, but you can get very expensive if you want to get a GG item. And I'm okay with that, because in Path of Exile, it might take you 100 hours to craft a GG item. In Diablo 3, you literally can't. Either the item is GG when you get it or not. Moving on, itemization. Whew. So let's talk about stats. So there are 3 traditional stats, just like there are 3 traditional character archetypes in an action RPG, right? So you got your melee dude who's kind of tanky. You got your ranged dude, your archer, and then you got your spellcaster. All right. So the 3 stats that kind of support that are strength, dexterity, or agility, whichever, and then intelligence, right? Those are kind of the fundamentals. Everybody started with those. The Diablo team, I guess, decided that there was just one stat after all. And then they took the one stat system, which was whatever character you were, you used that. If you were a wizard, you used intelligence and it did everything. And then they just decided, we'll do away with stats entirely. Let's just one stat, attack, defense. I touched on this in itemization. It's not, it can be good, but it's probably not. Right? Because even if you think about, like, what are you going to put on gear affixes? Oh, well, it's 20% extra attack stat. This is what I see that you will put on gear. I am assuming here. I haven't seen it, but I can imagine somewhere on some gear, it's going to be like your attack stat gets a 20% extra or 100% extra, whatever. When you put that on a piece of gear, you're going to the stat's going to be garbage if it's not at the max value, and then it's going to feel shitty. So look to the Path of Exile system for inspiration here. Path of Exile really, I think, nailed the stat allocation. You've got your strength, which gives you armor and hit points. You've got dexterity, which gives you evasion and damage, I think. And then you've got intelligence, which gives you, mana and maybe spell damage. I don't know. But basically, you only really need 3, but there's a great choice there where... and you can make them more generic. Intelligence can give resource recovery, right? So if I want to build a barb who has full fury like all the friggin' time, let me just stack intelligence on him so that he's crazy. Give intelligence, secondary affix of resource recovery or cooldown reduction or something crazy. Give it breakpoints to get skill modifiers. I don't know. The hit point stat should be useful for all characters. I think the strength didn't do enough if you weren't main stat strength in Diablo 3. And so it was in this way. And of course with Paragon system, which I guess I'll just slide right into. All of the stats were garbage except the main stat. Basically you get, 2,000 Paragon levels. You have 10,000 extra main stat. And the other stats didn't do anything. They didn't matter at all. And I don't think that means, well, let's just get rid of the other stats. I think maybe rethink what stat allocation does. Maybe go back to, stat requirements for gear. Stat requirements for gear, not a terrible system, right? And the stats, you don't have to allocate them as a player. They can be given by level ups automatically. And then you can just choose if I want to, in Diablo 2, if I wanted to wear an elite unique, Gothic plate, it would take some 400 strength. And so you had to be mindful, like if that's the gear I'm chasing, if that's the character I want to build, I got to get a lot of strength on my gear. Not just allocated by myself as a level, but also like on my gear. And now you're making a choice, and adding that strength gives you more health, and ultimately it allows you to equip more armored gear pieces. So I think that I like that. That felt really, really good when It felt bad if you didn't have enough points, so maybe just make all the stats appear on gear and give us a little bit of every stat as we level up based on class. But it has a lot to do with player identity. You know, how I feel about the character and what choices I've made are definitely influenced, you know, by the stat allocations that I make on my gear. And of course, in Diablo 3, you know, once you got Paragon, once you introduced the Paragon system, any hope of stats ever mattering just flew right out the window. There were some builds in original D3 that, you know, stats could matter even if they weren't your main stat. So, what I don't like about Paragon levels, and I'm concerned because in an interview about Diablo 4, you guys have talked about liking that feeling of progression and wanting it to return in some form, but you don't know how. I cannot advise against this enough. And the reason that Paragon is the worst thing ever is because it is impossible to feel like you have completed your character. It is impossible to arrive at a build and say, this is it, it works pretty good, I'm done with it, I'm going to go push and see how far I can make this character go. There is now a system behind the scenes that says, oh, you can't complete Greater Rift 110? Don't worry about it. Just keep doing a bunch of speed Greater Rift 105s. And eventually you will come back in 5 hours or whatever, and suddenly you can do Greater Rift 112. That is terrible. That is terrible. The Paragon system is awful. The sense of player progression should be achieved through the use of breakpoints. Just like there are skill breakpoints, which is like, you know, once you get it to this level, now instead of a damage penalty, it gets a damage bonus. Once you get it to this level, it gives you more attack speed. Once you get it to this level, it does extra projectiles or bigger AoE. Breakpoints are phenomenal. There are no breakpoints whatsoever in the Diablo 3 leveling experience. It is literally this. It's like flat and then curve and then vroom, and then off it goes to the moon on like a cosine. There's some kind of math there, but you don't give me a chance to sit back and go, whoa, I just got 30% more powerful, right? There's no opportunity for me to play my character. I don't feel it, right? I may get another 100 main stat. I may get another 200 main stat, another 500 main stat, whatever. I do not feel that progression because it's a combination of failures of the in-game gameplay loop as well as continuing to grind forever for nothing. So there's no set breakpoint for Paragon. It would be better if that system did not exist at all, and instead level ups after you got to, you know, whatever. It's like you complete the game and the campaign here at 35, but getting to level 40 was like, you know, getting to level 98 in Diablo 2, right? And every skill point after that point just felt really impactful. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, I grinded for 5 hours and I finally got a level up, and this skill, I got it above, you know, whatever. I couldn't get it above this point before, and now it gives me an extra projectile and I feel like I got more powerful. No one feels like they're more powerful when the numbers just go up to infinity, and it's, you know, if the numbers just keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going, what's the point, right? I can't feel a sense of progression. And so, I mean, there's obviously, I hate the Paragon system. That's the TLDR. But, you know, that ties like right into the dungeon system in Diablo 3. So Greater Rifts and Paragons kind of go hand in hand because you can't get anywhere in the Greater Rift system without the Paragon stat. Like if you just put on all of the best pieces of gear, let's say you got an ancient primal version of every piece of gear you need for the most powerful build in the game in Diablo 3, right? Now this would take thousands of hours of gameplay to achieve this on a character. It's not even technically feasible to really do it. But let's say for the sake of argument, I had the most powerful, best affixes, best secondaries, best everything on all my gear, and the Paragon system did not exist at all. What Greater Rift level could that character clear? And that's really the question. And is there a Greater Rift level that they could not clear that a character with much, much shittier gear who has 2,000 Paragon levels can clear? If the answer is yes, then we have a problem. If that character the first one I described, cannot do Greater Rift 150, then your in-game experience is fundamentally broken, and you're going to have to throw it out and rethink it. And I worry, you're talking about the dungeon keys in the same way as Greater Rift keys, like they're going to keep leveling up, keep leveling up, keep leveling up, and that's scary, because then there's nowhere for me to go, nothing for me to do, right? So look at some of these older, or other games, or rather, older and other. Look at Diablo 2. It was possible. Everybody talks about it like it was this trivial thing to make an in-game character, and everybody just did these runs or that runs. You know, I would say, as a hardcore Diablo 2 player, and by that I mean I just played a lot of hours, it was rare that I built a character who could solo bail on Hell mode. It was very rare that I built a character that could solo the Uber Tristram event. I think I had one ever. Like the Diablo clone encounter. It was very rare to make a character that could do those things. It was time consuming. It was very difficult. You had to get the gear. You had to know what you were doing. You had to build almost perfectly for it, right? And so that sense of accomplishment, when you finally overcame that breakpoint obstacle where you're like, I can't kill Bale, I can't kill Bale. Boom, I killed Bale. Now I have access to some of the best loot in the game. That felt really, really, really good. But if you have these dungeons where it's like, you know, if anybody's familiar with Borderlands 2, they had the OP levels, which is where you get all the same gear, and then you go to OP level, and now you have OP1 gear, which is just logarithmically better gear. Those kind of systems don't feel good. I should be able to get all the best items, all the right items, all the items that I want, put them onto my character, and then go do the hardest content and overcome it. And even if I can't do the most difficult content, I can still like see it in the distance as a, like, I want to get to that. That's where I want to be as a player. I'm watching my favorite streamer or whatever. I saw a guy on YouTube. He did this in 2 minutes. I can't do it at all. Oh my God, that's my goal. And here's the thing. Just having that objective is a driving, motivating force. My complaint about the dungeon system, which is called Greater Rifts or Rifts in Diablo 3, is what is the point? What am I as the player trying to overcome? You go play Diablo 2, it's like, I really want to be able to solo Chaos Sanctuary on Hell. I really want to be able to farm cows with a Lightning Nova sorceress. I really want to be able to kill Pendleskin reliably with my, you know, whatever character, right? You have these objectives. These are the bad guys. This is the content that I want to be able to do. And maybe I need multiple characters to do it. Because one character gets so specialized, I literally can't clear every single dungeon. That feels good, because that gives me as the player options to figure out what I want to do with each character. And so I derailed. Sorry. So in Diablo 3, Greater Rift system is garbage because there's no goal, right? At normal difficulty, at a level 1 character doing a rift, you have the same access to all of the same environments, all of the same tile sets, all of the same monster pools, and all of the same bosses as you do at Greater Rift 150. That is a fundamental flaw in your game's difficulty. That means the game never gets harder. The game doesn't get harder. The numbers just get higher. The affix pool, I mean, there's like a mild increase. 1 affix, 2 affix, 3 affix, 4. Woo. But the bosses have all statically designed encounters that never changed. And that is a fundamental dungeon running problem for Dungeon Runner, because I like knowing what to expect. And as a player, the more I attempt it, the harder I go, the more I play, the more I practice, the better I get at dodging those mechanics, at reading the boss's movement, at knowing what to expect, figuring out when to pop my cooldowns. I get better at the game instead of, oh, well, I couldn't do this boss on this level, so I just need the numbers to go higher. And once the numbers go higher, I'll go higher at the end. That's exactly how mobile games play. By the way, I don't know if you know this. That's how phone games, incremental phone games play just like that. And it's not a good system for a ARPG PC game. You know, if, let's take, Escandiel, one of the bosses for the Greater Rift. If you got him in Greater Rift 20, there's no difference than if you got him in Greater Rift 100. There's literally no difference in the fight. What I'd like to see is, like, why doesn't he get more difficult as I progress? Why doesn't he add new attacks? Why doesn't his timing change? Why doesn't he get more AoE, more, why didn't he summon more ads or move faster, or why doesn't he have cooldown reduction? All of the cool things that I do as a player to build a really broken character that can do 5 attacks per second, or can teleport every second, or can, like I get my cooldown reduction to 50, 60%, and now I can spam this ult ability all the time. That the bosses, the enemies in the game should be doing that shit too. In my pinnacle example of very well designed dungeon difficulty is the Shaper encounter from Path of Exile, and the Elder encounter from Path of Exile, and the Uber Elder encounter from Path of Exile. That is how to make a dungeon. That is how to make a boss. And actually, honestly, Diablo 3, the Belial fight, is a phenomenal here's how to make a boss. If there were some just small changes to, quicker animations, bigger AoEs, shorter cooldowns, that Belial fight would just be awesome as super in-game moment. I remember seeing so many death clips in in Torment difficulty from Diablo 3 from that Belial fight. Because that fight was designed in such a way that if you, the player, got really, 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 really good at the game, you could do that fight without taking damage on the hardest level without gear. Actually, I think Kripparrian killed Diablo on Inferno, Monster Power 10 or whatever, with just a weapon equipped on hardcore naked. It's like a 23-minute fight. Never took a hit. Now that is very well designed game difficulty. So I believe that those are the types of encounters that I like to see in a game. Those are the kind of things I like developers to make. Stuff that there can be a lot going on. There can be ads, there can be phase transitions, there could be big AoEs, the boss could be scary, move fast. But I, as the player, if I get good enough at the game, I can learn that encounter and do it flawlessly. And, you just don't see that in Diablo 3. These rift bosses is random spiral AoE or whatever, and you don't really need to dodge it. All you need to do is, get enough cooldown reduction that your damage reduction ability is always up, or use an active and a passive skill so that, you get this buff, and as long as you have that buff, you're good, and then you're just speed farming. Dungeons should be a statically designed encounter that a player can go test themselves against to see if they're now able to overcome it. And the loot shouldn't be guaranteed. If I'm finally able to overcome it, give me a chance at something cool. But where the loot comes in is that I have to go back and keep doing that dungeon with the affixes where, like, monsters are invisible, or there's 2 bosses, or, the bosses are way faster. It's maps. It's maps from PoE, let's be real. Dungeon keys are maps. It's your attempt, Blizzard, at putting maps into Diablo 4, which is totally fine. I'm good with that. I love the map system, because the harder the map, the more rewarding it is, and it gives me an incentive as a player to go clear the baseline version of the map. So it's like, boom, I'm at this skill level, but all of a sudden, it's twinned, and monsters have extra crits, and they do extra fire damage, and they have multiple projectiles. And now my skill, my reaction time, I have to improve. It can't just be that the numbers on my gear get to such a point that none of that matters, right? And this, this all ties in to player agency. Player agency is kind of the where I go, what I do, what I kill, and how I grow as a character. And allowing me to choose where I go, because in Diablo 3, there's no choice. You gear up, you get to the end game, you just push greater rifts. And if you're not pushing greater rifts, then you're speed farming T16 rifts so that you can get greater rift keystones so that you can do greater rifts, right? Because all of the items drop from everywhere in the game. And this ties into loot tables as well, which I think I touched on earlier. But specific dungeons should drop specific gear, right? Because if I like a dungeon because it's really cool and I have a lot of fun playing it, I should be able to go there, get that specific loot that it drops, maybe trade it to other players, maybe, disenchant it or whatever, and be able to craft my own items that I like. But maybe I don't like the hardest dungeon ever. Maybe I like the second hardest dungeon, and I'm like, ooh, I want to go there. I want to run this dungeon over and over and over again because this is the thing that is fun for me. I'll tell you what was fun for me in Diablo 3 was the boss fights. Not the Butcher, but Belial And Asmodan and Uber Diablo, those fights were incredible before Reaper Souls ruined them by trivializing them. But the mechanically very, very satisfying fights. A lot of fun to learn, a lot of fun to do. And I would go farm those over and over and over again. I wouldn't be running rifts. I didn't love rifts. They bored me. Um, and so by putting specific items on specific bosses, you're letting me, the player, choose where I want to spend my time, and then I don't feel like I'm just grinding Paragon levels over and over and over and over again. Um, and I mean that kind of speaks to the whole game. Itemization ties into that. What items do I equip in this socket? A Hammered in Diablo 2 could wear anything from Enigma and Ahaz and Hodo and be getting Battle Shout battle orders to just the Saigon set, right? But you could choose if you what. I'm not good enough to get an Enigma, so I'm wearing the Saigon set, um, and that's okay. The build still worked, right? And so let me choose my items, let me choose my build, and let me choose where to go with it and what to farm. Uh, I think I went too long on this video. Um, I don't know if I covered everything I wanted to cover. Those are some of my thoughts. I will close with some of the things I'm really excited about. Uh, some of the things I'm really excited about are world bosses. I think world bosses could be a really fun way to break up the gameplay. Um, and I want to go do this thing, and you get like a whole group together. It looked like they put fatalities back in, which was great because the fatality animations originally teased for Diablo 3 at BlizzCon, um, were really awesome, and they removed them for I don't know why, technical reasons, but that seems kind of fun and gritty, and that'd be cool to see. Um, I do like dungeon keys. If done well, I think that could be great. I love the mythic items. I love playing the druid. My god, that was the most satisfying gameplay. The way that they seamlessly shape-shifted, it was fucking great. The arsenal system for the barbarian, oh my god, that seems cool. Like when he does like the shockwave and he pulls out like the big two-hander, just drags it across the ground. It's awesome. Some of these are great ideas, great concepts. Most likely, I'm going to play the game regardless of whether or not it's garbage, and probably put 1,000 hours into it. But I would just be great if it were the kind of game that I wanted to put 10,000 hours into, rather than just after 100, I feel like I'm just grinding in place over and over again. What else did I like? Uh, I like kind of the way that the packs looked. The elite, the rare in the center of the pack was like a lot bigger than the rest of the packs. You can see like that's the boss one. Um, that was kind of cool. The animations and the kind of the environments and the art style is pretty gritty. It looked really good. The cinematic was amazing. A lot of these things about D4 look very, very, very promising. And there's a lot of time for revisions and changes, and I don't have any idea how much of the feedback that the community is providing that they're going to actually action, or how much they could. I think that if, for the, I don't know what you call hardcore power gamers, power game, people who play a lot of one specific game, I think if you did everything that we wanted to do, you're not going to sell as many units as you could by genericizing some of these things, making it console and mobile friendly. So I know that there are business implications that go into that, but I don't know. I liked it better when they just made the coolest game that they could make, and it really wasn't like, how can we port it to mobile and how can we get cross platform? It's like, you know, why don't you just make the best version of a Diablo game that you can make? And I'm not asking for you to revolutionize or dramatically change anything. Steal everything that all of these other games have done well, incorporate it, and make it better. That's exactly what World of Warcraft is. You guys playing RuneScape, and you're playing EverQuest, and you're playing, all of these other games, Lineage, and whatever's out of that. It's all your Blizzard developers sitting around playing Dungeons and Dragons. You're playing all these other games, and you're like, well, here's how we could do that. Here's how we do that, and then you just take it all and you just mash it into one amazingly well compiled, condensed version of awesome, and then that's what you do. I hope that that's what you intend to do for Diablo 4. My initial look is it's not promising. I see a lot of Diablo 3 inspiration that I don't like. But I don't know. There's still time. Feel free to comment if you agree with or disagree with what I'm saying. I don't care. You've probably seen me. I'll reply to anything. I'll reply if you call me an ass. I don't care. You know, I did want to get my thoughts out there. I know a lot of people have recently subscribed and who have asked me for a video, so I don't know if I did miss one thing. I just remembered I missed one thing. Okay. I'm sorry. I have to say this. Blizzard. Rune words are not back. That is a lie. That is an absolute lie. Rune words, Heart of the Oak, Enigma, Breath of the Dying. Those are words from runes, Ja'ith Bur. I don't know if you understand what a rune word is, but what you showed at BlizzCon is not rune words at all. You showed runes being put into sockets of existing items that just added extra shit to an already existing item. I haven't seen a lot of outrage about that, but that is not a rune word. It's not what rune words are. Rune words are crafted items with extremely rare materials. Let me repeat that in case you missed it. A rune word, as it was in Diablo 2, is a crafted item with extremely rare materials. What you showed is just a way to supplement an item that already exists. It is not a crafting system. Now, I am okay with it as you have implemented. I guess I would prefer that you not call them rune words because it's not what they are. That is a fundamental misunderstanding of what a rune word is. And if you fundamentally misunderstand as a developer for Diablo 4 what it was that made a rune word, which was the words that we called the item when you put a certain combination of runes in, then I am worried when you say you're drawing inspiration from Diablo 2, I'm worried that maybe you're going to miss the mark. Because, you know, that's the basics, baby. That's the basics for items. Ugh. Anyway, all right. So I don't know where I was. I forgot about that, but I had to come back and include it. This video is way, way, way too long. I've definitely ranted and rambled. You know, feel free to tweet at me if you hate it or post in the comments or whatever. You know, I can continue the discussion. If I come up with more stuff that I want to say, I'll probably make another video. But that's it for now. Thanks so much for tuning in.